Project planning for successful cloud implementations. Effective project management is critical to maintaining client satisfaction, efficiencies, and profitability. Your project manager's role is one of the most important in your organization, as they hold both pre- and post-sales responsibilities, and they are a key to project profitability. They help define your project scope, they develop and manage the project plan and the implementation strategy behind it. They determine methods to be utilized during project implementation. They identify all tasks to be completed during project implementation and every phase that each of these tasks rolls up into. They create an expected timeline and duration for each one of these tasks, and they assign resources for the execution of each of these tasks and hold them accountable. Now, the objectives of your project plan need to be very specific. There can be no gray area or opportunity for misunderstanding because that erodes efficiency and eats into your profits. The objectives also have to be very measurable. Each one of your activities and the phases have to be measurable in terms of success. And of course, the objectives have to be achievable, realistic, and each one of your phases, the overall project, and each one of the tasks that roll up into the phases that comprise your project plan need to be time-bound. There has to be an effective start date and a forecasted end date. Project plan creation includes the following activities: defining the scope of the overall project, identifying the tasks, allocating resources for execution and responsibility to conduct those tasks, assigning timelines for each task duration and the phases that the tasks roll up into, as well as the overall project plan, managing risk during project implementation. When designing your project plan, you're going to break your project out into logical phases to help manage risk so that you can roll back if something doesn't occur the way you want it to. You're also going to manage change. Change management is one of the key components of successful, effective, profitable project implementation. You're also going to manage communications between all affected parties, including your vendors and fulfillment partners and upstream cloud service provider. You're going to establish success criteria for each phase of the project, and the success of each phase of the project is then tied to final project acceptance. You're going to perform phase and project review, and then finally, you're going to manage acceptance of the project. After your project plan has been created, you're going to present it to your client, who's going to provide you approval of the overall project plan and acceptance of the plan itself. You're going to verify the project schedule against the client's calendar, as well as other vendors and fulfillment partners, to make certain that your timelines are still good. You're going to identify and allocate client resources that are required for the project's implementation. For instance, if you're migrating a client from an existing line of business application to a cloud solution, you're going to want to engage with that existing line of business application's guru in your client's environment to help guide and test the final solution before go live. And everyone's going to agree to roles, responsibilities, and tasks and be held accountable to execution of those tasks. You're also going to need to agree to the risk management plan. Your client's going to understand the risk management strategy as well as the change control process and agree to that. And then finally, the communication and status reporting process is going to be established, and everyone's going to agree to that. And then we're all going to agree to the acceptance criteria during the kickoff meeting. Typically, the project manager will use a document known as a project acceptance form, which documents all of these items: the risk management strategy, the change control process, the communication and status reporting process, all of the key resources that are going to be working together to implement the project, etc., as well as the acceptance criteria. Now, after the client agrees to the project plan and accepts it and signs off, then procurement begins. Your project manager then orders all the necessary hardware, software, and services required to implement the project. They work with both internal and external procurement resources, including clients' vendors perhaps, in order to make certain that everything is ordered and provisioned in a timely fashion to meet the project's success criteria. The project manager then manages all resources during project implementation: your internal resources, the client's resources, and vendors and fulfillment partners. Now, phases of project implementation can be conducted at the solution provider's location, client's location, vendors' locations, and certainly in the cloud. The change control process is a key element of project success and adherence to timeline and scheduling. Now, the first thing that we need to understand is a strict change control process will actually create much more satisfied clients than a loose or faulty change control process. So let's take a look at the steps that need to be executed during change control. First of all, when there is the need to deviate from the established project plan that has been accepted by the client, we need to initiate change control. The first step is to identify the need for change. We document and communicate the need for that change to all affected resources, and then we identify options and select the one that best suits the project's objectives. We then assess that proposed change and then communicate that to all affected parties and submit a change request to the client. The client then approves the change, we implement the change, and then we document that that change has been implemented to all affected resources. Now, typically, the project manager will use a change order form in order to document the need for change and receive the required acceptance from the client to implement that change in order to achieve the success criteria of that phase of the project. Now, project sign-off requires the success of each phase of the project to be measured satisfactorily. The management of the timeline, budget, and resources expended during that project to be measured satisfactorily. The communication management process measured satisfactorily, along with the change management process. And then the client and the stakeholders and other resources expectations managed satisfactorily. During phase review, the project manager will use a phase acceptance document, typically to document the client's satisfaction that that phase of the project has met their satisfaction level based upon the success criteria that was agreed to during project plan acceptance. And then at the end of the project, final project review will include a similar document to confirm the client's satisfaction that each phase of the project was met by the success criteria that everyone agreed to during the project kickoff meeting.